Nikia. Okay, let's get this going. Have you ever had a decision that scared you so much that you almost talked yourself out of it? Or you knew deep down that you needed to change, but because it was unfamiliar, it was very hard for you to move forward with it? So basically, being scared is not proof that it's the wrong decision. Okay. So fear can pop up, especially um especially when it's shaking up your life, basically. Um where you haven't been used to it shaking up. So then it feels like fear because you've probably been living your life a certain way. You've probably been doing things a certain way. And I found that fear pops up when things are basically a little rocky, when you're in that transition or it's that transition time. Um, so I found that I quickly learned that when you're making a decision, the decisions that are right for you to make are usually the ones where it feels unfamiliar, and not necessarily comfortable. Okay. And sometimes it won't even make sense at first. Most of the time, like most of the time, the direction won't make sense, and most likely, it wouldn't fit into the typical logic. It won't fit into the typical um society of how society says you need to do things. So like for example, if society says, "Oh, like you have to go to school first and then get a job and then like get married," like maybe you like end up it goes a different way, right? And then maybe you end up getting married first and having baby and then you go to school and all that stuff um so like decisions that don't make sense to other people have this way of what do you call it? Has this way of coming into your life and just not making sense. Like it goes into it goes a different direction than what you're like expecting. And so by the way, I'm just talking about um making the scary decision maybe not the right direction, in case you're just wondering. um so there always are clues when you're making a decision that may be not the right when you're making a decision that may be the right one, even if it's scary. And I usually it feels fearful, right? And it feels outside of what you usually do. And usually that decision may be different than what you thought before, or it may have been a thought that it's an unusual thought where you're like, oh, I don't usually think like that. Or it may feel very foreign or something that's completely against your character and what you're usually used to do. Hey. So just in case you're wondering, guys, I'm just talking about um like the scary decision might be the right one. So talking about decisions because that can be some of the hardest things to do sometimes, especially when you're in a place where things may not look perfect. You're transitioning seasons, or your season is looking kind of like doesn't look like there's anything else more. And I want to talk more about decisions because I feel like um, it could change the trajectory of things, and it could open so many doors when you make a decision, even when you're scared, or even if you're in that world of fear. Put 2 in the chat if you've ever been scared to make a decision, but deep down, you know you need to do it. So usually, when you're making the right decision and it's scary, the other clues are, you're usually gonna go back and forth with it. Um, between what you used to do and what you usually do. Okay. And I say this because I noticed that every important decision I've made, I've always went back and forth with it. Especially if I know I need to do it, but then I would always compare it to the thing that I'm already doing. So for example, like, getting laid off, right? It was like when I was making a new type of decision that I wasn't used to, in terms of starting a business for the first time. I went back and forth with it. I was like, "Oh, well, I can do what I know, what everyone else is telling me to do, which is apply for the job. Go for the job, Nikia. Like that's what you're supposed to do. Or I could try something new that I wasn't familiar with." And so let me ask you this. Are you scared because something is wrong? Or are you scared because something is new? You can answer that in the chat. So drop new in the chat if you think fear has stopped you from trying something new. Type in new. Um, and then another thing too is, and this is another point, it's comfort can feel safer even when it's hurting you. So when you're scared, your automatic response is to try to get out of that scared phase. You're trying to get out of that scared feeling, basically. And we want to get out of that uncomfortable feeling. Like it's usually not comfortable. And our goal is, even though we may not like the situation we're in, we have a tendency to want to stay in it or want to go back in it or just do what we know because it's easier. Especially if you're setting your ways, you're setting your routine. It's like, why should I change it? And so usually there's that temptation to do that. Um, and I want to say that this is very real, guys. Like, I remember, like, going back to the laid off job. I keep on using an example because it was a really pivotal moment in my life. Um, and it was something that I was not aware of when I was in that situation. And now I look back at it, I'm like, huh. And the thing about it is, I remember that I was contemplating, like when you really think about it, I was contemplating getting a new job, right? Knowing that I probably would have gotten another dead end job, knowing that I probably would be unhappy again because I was stuck in this cycle, right? Of finding a new job, being happy for like 2 seconds, and then going back and not feeling happy again. And then I would go back and then find a new job and then leave the job and go. And there was just this ongoing cycle. And can you believe it that I was still wanting to stay in this job? I was still wanting to do the same decisions over and over, even though it wasn't working. Like, when you think about it, it's so crazy to me, like how we work as a human body, how we will keep on doing the same thing that we're not happy with, that we complain about it to our spouse or your spouse, friends, coworkers. You will do the same thing over and over, complain about it, and don't do a thing about it. I think that's so crazy. Like, how many coworkers I see do that? It's nuts. Right? And you're thinking to yourself, but you don't have something to your head forcing you to do it. And I think it's crazy how we all can sometimes fall into that trap where we don't want to make the change, but there's something deep inside of us that wants to make the change, but we're like, no, I'm gonna keep it the same and be unhappy. Um, and it's so easy, you get to realize like it's just so easy to do things that's not serving you versus something that's serving you. It's easy to do the thing where it's not making you happy. But it's like when you're comfortable, it just like it's like everything else that you really want almost goes outside the door, basically. Right? So you could be discovered, that person can be like breaking you down. Like this can go for anything in your life. Like you can be in a friendship that's breaking you down, but then you're like, no, I really like this friendship and like I'm comfortable with it. Or there's that boss that like talks down on you, discriminates you, and you be like, oh, look, I'm just staying with it. And I understand you're gonna say, oh, bills. But like sometimes it's just more than that too. Like sometimes it's like, oh, because I've been doing it for years, like I already built up all this like expertise and like skills, so you're like, "Okay, I'm gonna just stay in it." Um, and I feel like as humans, when I, like, really analyze it and I'm like, "Oh my god, are we really this crazy and nuts that we just love this?" Like, we love, like, the comfort of the discomfort. So even if it's discomfort like, it's not even though it's uncomfortable, we will still continue doing even if it's comfortable, right? Sometimes you would rather stay in the spot that we are used to, even if it does not look good, than go into a whole new space and then have to like learn a different way of life and then feel better about ourselves. Like I feel like we stay in these like natural like routines, even though it may not be good for us, right? Put a one in the chat if you've ever stayed somewhere longer than you should have just because it was familiar. Guilty here, right? It's like, have you ever, and I'm gonna ask you this question, you can put in the comments, have you ever gone back to something that was not good for you just because it was comfortable. I found that usually, and this is the next point, sometimes the decision gets louder when life gets uncomfortable. And this is where we have to pay attention. Um, sometimes it's easy to ignore, especially if you've been used to ignoring, like that voice is telling you, okay, like we need to do something else, or we need to try something else. It will tend to get louder the more life doesn't seem like it's going away. It's going. And I think it's like a part of you that's like screaming to you and saying, hey, like we have this idea or we have this decision to make to change courses, like do this one. But sometimes it's like we don't really want to do it. We will repel it. And I think that's just very interesting. Um, and so I found that so let me give you a little background. So before I got laid off, right? And I was in a job, for example, I remember like there was a inkling, there was a deep feeling where I was like, I know I need to change something, but I don't know what, I don't know how. And then there was different points. I think I maybe got different outs, like different opportunities, but then every time I would like retract back because I was like, oh no, let's go back to the boat. Like let's retract, let's go back to the shore. Every time. Um, and the decision was slowly getting louder because I was starting to research like very heavily until a point where and then I wouldn't listen, right? Because technically I would go back to my comfort zone. And it wasn't until, okay, guys, listen, it was only until like my back was against the wall where finally like I was able to hear my thoughts clearly and I was willing to listen. Like sometimes you're gonna go through things where or sometimes life has a way of making you go through things so you can listen, right? Sometimes we have so much distraction around us that we fail to listen to our intuition, what it's really telling us. And I think that's why there's so much confusion because a lot of times people don't listen to themselves. They're very involved with the distractions in life. That could be your job. It could be having to do with like ending a friendship. Like it could be like something around something that happens dramatically in your life. But usually there has to be something that dramatically happens for you to be all of a sudden open. It's almost like a new door opens, right? That you can walk in that you weren't able to walk in. And sometimes I believe that when we're distracted, and if it has all your emotions and energy, it's very hard to walk through a new door. Very hard to walk through a new door, when you have all these, like, I would call it noise around you. And so you're very unlikely to walk in until you go through these things. And that's why when you go through a trial, right? When you're going through something very hard, um, don't pay attention to the hard season, the challenging season. I'm not saying ignore your emotions, but don't pay attention to what is currently going around you. And you have to take a step back. Like if you could walk out your body and then take a look, like take a like a big big vision look, like outside of your situation, you have to look and ask yourself, what am I learning? Like what is God trying to tell me? Like what is happening here? Right? What is like my intuition, my future self trying to tell me right now? Because usually there's a learning moment. Like when something dramatic happens, it's time to listen. When I knew that I needed to go back to a job after having a business that I was not aligned with, I don't know, one day it's like I went to shower and then like I just something just said loudly one day because I was getting frustrated. I wasn't into like working with clients anymore of that nature. And I remember it's like I went into the shower and then I heard a loud voice say like it's time to let go of the clients. It was loud. And it was only once I got out my head, I wasn't doing any work and I was calm. Like like some of your best ideas and some of your best solutions or the answers that you're looking for is gonna come when you're in a calm state. It's when you're not in a frantic, like you don't get the best ideas when you're full of anxiety and stress and all that. Like your best ideas are gonna come when you are calm or you're relaxed or you're finally ready to listen. I think that's very key. Like you could watch something and not be listening to it. Or you can be hearing, the answers, but you're really not ready for it. Sometimes, like, it's like your intuition is telling you to do something, but it's like if you're not ready to take the action, you're not going to really listen until you're ready to be like, okay, like, give it to me now. Like, give me the answers right now. That's usually what happens, right? It doesn't usually come when you're anxious. It doesn't come when you're stressed out. I want to give you another example. So I remember um one day I was starting my car and it didn't start. And in a nutshell, I remember I got so much anxiety and then like I was all stressed out about it. And then what ended up happening is, short story short, is I ended up sitting down at my desk. And in case you guys are jumping in, we're just talking about like making the right decisions when they're scary. And so I remember sitting down at the desk and all of a sudden I just calmed down. Like I just started to calm down, my anxiety went down. And then I heard a voice say, go and knock on your neighbor's door. And tell him to boost your car. And I was like, I remember saying, like, God, like, I don't want to do that. It's okay. Because it was uncomfortable. I don't want to do that. It was uncomfortable. I was like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm good. I'll just call CDA or I don't know, figure it out another time, like tomorrow or something. And then I heard the voice again saying, go and knock on your neighbor's door and ask him. And do you know, like, what happened was basically it was the car was boosted, and I ended up bringing it to Canadian Tire, which was a mechanic. And do you know, it's just because the battery was loose in the car. And I was like, "Are you serious?" And I remember thinking, I spent all that time full of anxiety, like stressed out, all this stuff, and I could have just been calm and just heard that voice and did that, and then my solution would have been solved. Which is crazy, right? When you think about it. But that's what I'm saying. Your best ideas, the solutions that you're looking for is going to come when you're in a calm state. Like it's not gonna come when you're stressed out and you're like, okay, how do I get the next $500? Like, how do I get this or how do I get the next job? Like, and you're frantic. I find your best actions will come when you're like not worrying about the situation and you're continuing to move forward as if you already have that thing. Like, how would you act if you already had the very thing that you want, that you've been desiring? What Whatever that is, whether it's friendships, romantic relationship, goals, like career goals, like what exactly would you want? If you were in a calm state, where would your mind go? If you already had it, where would your mind like how would you be acting? And that's the way like you need to act. And like that's the way you need to act. Is that's how you have to think about it. And I know it's harder, it's easier said than done, but that's what I realized in that moment. It was like when I was calm, that's when I got the answer. I didn't get the answer when I was, like, frantic and, like, you just having, like, a breakdown, like, because I was like, "Oh my god, what am I gonna do?" Like, all that stuff, right? Um, so what is the one decision that's getting louder in your life right now that you know you need to do but you've been running from? Put it in the comments. Um, and the thing about it is when something keeps coming back over and over or there's a thought, um that's you definitely have to listen. That's like another sign. It's like you have to listen to it. You cannot ignore it. Like when it keeps coming back, you need to listen. But let me know in the chat, like put a one in the chat, if there's something that you keep thinking about that will not leave you alone, right? That comes to your mind over and over again. So the next point is sometimes what is good for us feels uncomfortable because we are used to dysfunction. So I discovered this in my own life, and it was very interesting. So I didn't have a really good relationship with my mom, and basically I was not welcomed when she started to move. And it was a very toxic relationship. And funny enough is that even though I was making that decision, that conscious decision to move forward and finally be on my own and be out of that toxic situation, because there was a sense of me that felt more free. Like there was a part of me that still grieved that part of like living in this toxicity. My mom and I remember crying and all that stuff. And even though I was making a new decision for my new life, without toxicity, there was a part of me that still like missed it. Hey, there's a part of me that still missed it. Um, and even though did not treat me well, I remember thinking, why would I feel emotional like this? Like there was a moment where I was like, this is very interesting. How you feel, you still feel like there's still emotions and feelings around it, right? There's still a party that still misses it. right? But the reality is sometimes what is good for us, we don't want it at first, right? And then sometimes the things that are bad for us, we want it. That's why you'll see people stay in jobs they don't like. You'll see people not take the action in their business, even though it make them happier. You'll see people enjoy. They'll have hobbies that they enjoy, but it's like they don't do it. They don't make it a priority. It's like we love being in that state. Um, and this is why you cannot always trust comfort because comfort can be toxic. That's the truth, guys. Like, comfort can be one of the most toxic things. Because comfort can be okay, there could be a good part of it where sometimes you just reach a point in your life and you're just at peace and you're in a season where you're like, okay, everything's working and you're coasting. It's a beautiful place to be. But usually you don't stay like that because we're always growing, we're always evolving, whether you like it or not. So you may be moving backwards or you may be moving forward. You're doing one or the other. So if you're not moving forward, you're moving backwards basically. Because you never stay in a coasting. And usually if you're coasting, like eventually you start sliding back because you just can't stay in that motion forever. Like even like in a business, like if you're coasting, it's usually good, but everyone knows like, oh, you can't stay in that position forever. Like if you're coasting in a job, you can only stay for that so long until there's a part of you that's like, oh, I'm tired of this and I want something different. Right? Um, and so comfort just becomes this familiarity, right? Familiar, oh my God, familiarity. It becomes a familiarity. That's something that you're familiar with. Can't even say that word. Um, and I think it's like a danger zone. And you really have to really assess your life. If you're not, especially if there's been decisions knocking on your door, like you have to pay close attention to that. And so has anyone experienced that before? Definitely put it in the chat. And another point is give yourself grace, b- um, because but don't ignore yourself forever. And I say this because if you've been doing something for years, okay, a certain way, you have to eventually get used. Like you have to like give yourself grace. Like if you've been doing it for years, it may take you some time to like unfold it. I mean, time is an illusion, by the way. Like, you can be doing one thing forever, like, for a very long time, and then one day you just switch. But for most people, like, it may take small steps. And that's why I've talked about, like, if you've been, like, trying to make a decision, it's maybe taking 15 minutes out your day to move forward in that direction. So maybe it's not doing it fully, maybe it's just doing like, research, for example, and then you kinda, like, move along forward slowly. Or you're doing research and then eventually you take action and or you take a small task, like little steps, right? Um, but there comes a point where you just have to listen to yourself. Like, so this weekend or this week, I posted an Instagram video and I thought it was interesting because people were shocked by it. And immediately, um, people were shocked by it. And hey, I'm just talking about making scary decisions. This is more so for women, though. I don't know why there's so much men in here, but it's more so for women. Yeah. And so yeah, recently I posted on Instagram like video like reels for the first time. And I remember people were like, "Oh, hey, like you made videos. Like this is cool." And finally someone asked me to like what inspired you? Um o- okay, hey, Jada. Jada. Sorry about that, Jada. Just making sure. Just making sure. Um Thanks for watching. What do you call it? Some there's just weird people in here, so that's why. I see like weird people asking questions. It's weird. But yeah, so anyways, so let me continue. And then she said, "Well, what inspired you to like just post?" Like, and I just told her, I got tired of the nagging in my head saying, "You need to post on Instagram, the reels, you need to post it." Like every time this was been going on for months. And I think finally I just had enough. and I just made the video, edit it, and then post it. And sometimes that's what it may like be like for you guys, making a scary decision, right? You may like, yes, you may take small steps, but it may get to a point where it just keeps on nagging. You need to do that. You need to do this. You need to do this thing. You need to do it. And then eventually you're like, I'm tired of hearing it. And you know what it did? It like opens up a space. Like it opens up more room for other things. You no longer have that tax on your mind. Guys, that's another side of it. Like when you're trying to make a decision and you keep on going back and forth with it. The truth is, this is even not even in my notes. But the thing is, when you're going back and forth with it, what you don't realize, it takes up so much of your energy. It's crazy. It takes so much of your energy, and it's in your mind all the time. You need to get rid of it sometimes. Like sometimes you need to just like break open the cap and just do the thing, and you're gonna find you'll feel so much better, and then you can move on to the next thing. And then by the time you do the thing, you're like, "Oh, this wasn't so bad." And, I have this in different areas of my life. So for me, maybe it's an OCD thing, I'm not sure. So, like, for example, like, when I have paper towels being almost done, it's just weirdest thing. So when I have paper towels that are almost done, okay, what will end up happening is I will tend to, like, stop like, I reduce my use of it. It's weird. And then there's a part of me that's like, "You need to get more, um, paper towel. You need to get more." It just keeps on going. And until eventually I'm like, "You know what? Let me just, like, buy more paper towel so I can stop hearing that." And usually, like, it goes away, that thought, right? So that's kinda like what it's like. It's like when you're trying to make the decision, it gets to the point where you just kinda have to do it, right? And take the step so then you remove that weight off your mind thinking about this thing over and over again because it's not fun. Right. So I'm just talking about scary decisions if anyone is making scary decisions. If anyone's wondering. Um, so the question you should ask yourself is, are you stuck between comfort and growth right now? Um, and is that something that like you go back and forth about because or you're in between a decision that may help you move forward? Like you have to ask yourself these questions. Like ask yourself, is this fear trying to protect me or is it trying to keep me comfortable? Am I scared because this is wrong, or am I scared because this is new? Like, these are practical things to how to know if that scary decision, that fearful decision that you need to make that will probably shift things. Maybe it might rattle some feathers. It may go against what people tell you to do. Like, it may not make sense to a lot of people. You have to prepare yourself for that too. Like, it's not going to be a perfect transition. People are not gonna get it. But the good thing about it is people don't have to get your decisions because they're for you. It's aligned with you. Ask yourself, if I go back to what is familiar, will I actually be happy? And this was a famous question of mine, guys, when I was laid off and trying to transition into a business. Hey, hey, Child Wild. Okay. That was a question I had, right? And I think that's what really like moved me to the next level. So I'm telling you, these questions do work. By the way. Like, when I was laid off and I was trying to figure out the business and all that stuff, like, if I should do it because it was something, like, out in the ordinary, that was the first question I asked, but in a different way, obviously, but it was basically this is what it was. If I go back to what is familiar, will I actually be happy? And I knew, like, if I went back to applying to another job, I knew I wouldn't be happy, I would be going through the same cycle again. So that was the answer for me, I was like, "No, I don't wanna do the same thing again. We're gonna switch this baby up and do something different." And it worked out. Paid a lot of debt, made some money, saved, all that stuff. Next one is, does this keep coming back to you no matter how much you try to ignore it? That's a big factor. When it keeps on coming back to me over and over and over again, signs. Guys, signs. Um, and this is a question I really want you to think about. Is this fear telling me I'm unsafe? Or is this fear telling me it's unfamiliar? Right? Because there's a big difference, right? I mean, if it's something that's jeopardizing your safety, obviously, like, you're not gonna do it. Like, it's actual fear that's protecting you. Like, you still have to listen to your gut. But if it's something that's just the unfamiliar, like, you have to really distinguish that. Like, is this just unfamiliar? And this is why. I'm fearful. Because a lot of times we are scared of the unknown, believe it or not. We get fearful when we don't know all the steps. We get fearful when we don't know the house. Like, that's just how we are. Like, we like to know every step. If we can know every step, we would do it. And a lot of it is faith. Like, a lot of it is the unknown. Like, you have to learn to do things that are unknown, but is aligned. Like, it makes such a big difference. Right? You like being in the unknown is not a reason to not make the decision. Make the decision. Sometimes what I do sometimes too, like if I'm going back and forth, but it depends on how strong it is, like how much it's yapping at me saying, you need to do this, you need to do it. That intuition. Sometimes I'll leave it on the shelf or I'll write in my journal so that it gets out of my mind. And I'll just write down and say, this is what I'm thinking, and just leave it. But there's times where I'm like, okay, let's make a decision, like what we're gonna do. And you make the decision. Because remember I said in the beginning, like just now, sometimes it holds too much tax in your mind. It holds too much weight, and it gets to the point where you just have to make the decision and do what you have to do. So then it quiets down that voice. Because that thing be driving you crazy. I sound like a crazy person, but really that's how intuition is. It's like when you need to do something, it'll just keep on coming back over and over. Like, let me know, put it two in the chat if you've experienced that. Where the intuition, like, or that there's a voice that keeps telling you to do something, this idea, or I don't know, like a new thing that you need to do that you haven't done before. Put it two in the chat if you've been experiencing that. Um, and yeah, so I just wanted to share that, and this is why I again created the build where you are, clarity call, because it's just for people who maybe need someone that's from the outside to come in and then hear your thoughts and like put it all together and like put the ideas together, like ideas that you've been sitting on. Like if you've been sitting it on it for months or years, it's time, guys. It's time. Like it's time to just get it out and figure out, okay, how can I make this into action steps, right? So the link is always in the description. It's originally 497, but I'm doing for $87. It's in the chat. You could always go there. And if you know you're ready to stop overthinking, get clear on your next step, book the clarity call. You know what it is. And I want to end with a closing question. What scary decision have you been avoiding because it feels unfamiliar? What is that scary decision? Like, think about it and assess it because sometimes it's not always fear. It's not always being scared. Like, it's not always, oh, I'm scared, so I mustn't do it. Like, because I'm going to tell you guys, I know I said I was going to end it, but I'm going to say this. Like, a lot of the times, the things that you're scared of, it's like you need to do it. Like it's like the feeling doesn't go away, by the way, until you do it. Then the fear goes. I think sometimes we have it backwards. We think, oh, like if it's the right thing, like I won't be afraid or I won't feel nervous about it. And it'll go away eventually. No, no, no. Usually, you have to do the action for it to go down, for it to disappear, and then eventually, it's like second nature, basically. But yeah, see you tomorrow. Bye.